December the 18th, 2023 at 6 p.m. This is the City Council work session for the City of Bel Air Beach. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Renee, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Frank Bankert.
Present.
Councilmember Mark Chester.
Here.
Councilmember Kim Shaw Elliott.
Present.
Mayor Dave Gaddis.
Present.
Vice Mayor Jody Shirley.
Here.
City Manager Kyle Riefler.
Here.
Okay, and I'm assuming everyone saw the letter from Councilmember Natero, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, Frank, you had something you were discussing with that you wanted to discuss.
Well, I was just discussing about the storm this past weekend, and I know Kim's not in town, so I was concerned about her property, because properties on my street, some of them took water in again. Streets around me took water in again, and I believe we only had 2.5 inches of total rain. But I asked people that were living on the intercoastal, they said that wind just pushed that water right over the seawall again. And one guy said to me, he thinks when they put the new ramp in at 7th Street, they compromised it, that it's too low now or whatever. He says, because he lives right on the corner, he says, that water was just coming right up the ramp. I don't know if it's different at night or now.
I don't think it's any lower.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long, once it goes down, then there's a long pitch, you know. I don't know what the grade of the pitch is coming to the streets, but it was a mess. And that wasn't even a storm.
All right, we have one item on the agenda. This is a presentation from MWI Pumps. I'm assuming this is Kelby Morgan and Bill Miller. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello. Thank you.
I'm just going to hand the floor right over to you, and if you would, just step up to the podium, and for the record, give us your name and who you're with, and
Do you have a way we can connect to a screen or anything by chance?
Yes.
So you
What program are you using?
can, just PowerPoint.
You can, I have HDMI connection. If you don't have it, you can put it.
Can I HDMI into yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this mic is on, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, while he's setting up, my name is Bill Miller. Appreciate you all letting us come over and talk to you. We're from Vero Beach. That's where we actually live in our offices, our sales offices there. We're several pump companies in one now. MWI has purchased companies over the years, so we've got lots of experience with different styles of pumps, from water fountains to flood control to water treatment plants and
Mr. Miller, hold on one second.
Yes.
Kim, are you able to hear?
I am. Thank you for checking. I'm fine.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. He's a little far away from the microphone.
The best bet might be just trying to put.
Thank you.
Anyway, we've got a lot of experience, and we've done a lot of different types of jobs. We've done lots of jobs similar to what you all may or may not see fit to do in your area. Kelby's got a presentation that will go through some of the stuff that some of it will be almost a footprint of what we could do. We haven't actually seen your site, but there's just a few ways to get rid of water. You know, when you're trying to get it to a tide that's higher than your property is, and you have to pump it. So, but if anybody has any questions, you might not have the answer tonight, but we can get the
So we just had a storm,
Mhm.
and once again, some of the houses got flooded out. But we didn't get the water out of the street till almost 8 a.m. Sunday. That was when the tide was negative 0.1.
Yeah.
Negative 0.1 is when that finally
Right.
dissipate. All right, now, it did start going down. It never, these valves never really opened till it hit about the 2-foot level. Once that 2-foot level is there, it just, whatever comes down from the sky stays in the street.
Right.
So, we had, I think you talked to Gemini Engineering?
We did, we spoke with them.
Okay,
Yeah, haven't met them yet,
Yeah.
but we did speak with them.
okay.
I think, are you Frank?
Yes.
All right,
I'm
nice to
sorry.
meet you.
Yeah, but, I believe you guys told me you could do a pump that would do about 2,400 gallons a minute.
Yeah, our pumps range in a variety of sizes. We start around 8-inch. We've got some pumps that are pumping around 1,000 gallons, 1,200 gallons a minute, on up to large 120,000 gallons a minute, which are large.
Yeah.
But Kelby, I think, is ready to,
Almost.
almost ready. But I think a lot of the systems have gravity out to the ocean until it's too high. So a lot of pump stations are put in and there's a separate gravity line still there. Or some stations, the gravity lines are on either side, a block on either side of where the station is. So, they're not taking up a lot of space. Real estate's expensive, so we try to condense as much as we can. Sometimes the pump stations are actually in the road, and your discharge is running down between the property line easement out to the ocean. And they have gates on them that stop anything coming back.
Well, this probably was too dark when you pulled in here, but our basketball court, the water came right up to just about that basketball court.
It's just a big file.
Well, it sounds like you're in a good position to start planning on options. Some places, don't give themselves enough time to plan, and they put in a great station, and within 10 years, it's not doing, it can't do all the work that they need it to do. But Kelby will hit on, we've got a lot of different materials we design and build pumps out of. Stainless steel is what we generally use when we're on the water. We have other products and they don't hold up with the salt. And you end up, servicing them often, which is expensive, and replacing them much sooner. We've got some pumps in Hilton Head, I think they're 24 years old, and they've just started replacing them, only because they think they need to replace them. The pumps are still working, but they think they're getting closer to the end of their life.
How are they generated? Electric?
They're electric. They're electric submersibles, actually. Some of the stations have generator backups, and some don't. A lot of times they'll have a generator, maybe if there's 3 or 4 pumps in a station, they might have a generator to run one of them, not all of them. So,
That's not really. Can you just exit it right now?
Oh, my God.
You need to speak up into your mic, just so everybody can hear.
from the storm, I was out of state. How did we do with our sand that we
The
brought?
sand, I would say 1/4 of it,
Wow.
maybe 1/4 of it washed away.
Indian Rocks, they did much worse. I talked to somebody today at the airport.
Yeah, now, I will say this, that there's been several complaints from condo owners and the hotel owner that the dune was higher than they anticipated, and they didn't like these.
No, it's lower.
They didn't like no, it's not, it's still
Oh,
just,
it's
it's
still-
still just as high.
Just cut.
But here's what my prediction is that as that starts, it's gonna fall. And whenever that does, it's gonna be more beach sand. And as long as we don't have another very rare, dangerous storm like we just had. I've heard from some people that we've not had a storm like that in the month of December in 50 years.
It made national news. I was here in Georgia, and it was,
Well, if you talk to like Weeks Engineering or any big dredging companies in it, they'll say dredging 101. You restore the beach first, and then you put the dune.
you have to put fast-growing oats.
Well, you have to put a beach to absorb the water.
Well, I'll stand with, it's Mother Nature. You're putting sand where it wasn't.
Right.
And this is the process. This is what happens. If you're pulling sand out of the ocean and pumping it on the beach, guess what? It's going right back out to the ocean. That's
That's
just
why
the
the contract
process.
says every 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, but we didn't do it until
Right.
the 90s.
68 was the first one.
When they had the great storm in Galveston. When they had the great storm in Galveston, they raised the whole island. And it took them like 10 years.
Yeah, I brought that up at a meeting.
What I like about it is, that's the worst storm ever. So the idea that storms are getting worse,
Yeah.
that's over 100 years ago.
Yeah, and since then they've lengthened that seawall, I think by like 20 miles.
Oh, yeah, but they raised the whole island up, and then they put that big seawall in, and it's like a, kind of a big
You
triangle.
have to have something to retain the
Right.
sand. You
That's
have
why
to put a wall in.
You should see the granite, it's pretty impressive. We used to live,
Well, they put an artificial reef, if you look at the map, in the 50s, right after World War II, out of the whole Santee Island. That retained a lot of sand, but it still didn't give a beach until we started dredging in 68.
So whenever you were referring to a negative .1 tide, the surge was so bad that at that point, it was almost over my dock. So if it had been anything but a super low tide, you would have had big problems.
Well, the tide projected, I think, was coming in at 2.9 feet before the storm. And I don't know what the tide came in actually at, but it wasn't the tide, when the Dahlia came in, that tide was predicted at 3 feet, 3.1, which is a big difference, a couple inches.
Well, the big difference that I noticed was that this one was sustained, whereas Adalia was in and out.
Yeah.
It was a short storm, so even though water stayed, I think that this situation was actually worse.
yeah, for longer too. Good, our lower part of our dock was completely
Is
water.
this
That's that's something floating.
Oh, okay.
But this is dock,
really
that's
lower.
underwater.
I can also tell you that we weren't alone. I drove down Clearwater Beach, and there was sand all over the street. There was sand everywhere.
Yeah, I know, well, they canceled everything at the Carnival Yacht Club on Sunday because they couldn't open. But then I talked to some residents of Bel Air on the Fingers, and they said their road just looked like a river. There was just water flowing down there on those fingers. So we're definitely not alone as far as that
Right.
goes. everyone dealt with it, because when you have tides coming in like that, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't pump it out to the tide, it's slapped over the seawall, doesn't
No,
solve the
right.
problem.
Well, I disagree.
Well, they'll tell us. They're the experts.
New Orleans had a bunch of pumps fail.
Yeah.
They had big ones, big pump stations.
We talking about Katrina?
But Katrina didn't even hit New Orleans very hard. It went up Mississippi. What they got was the flood. Then levees break.
Well, the sorry part about it is they had leaks right outside here. You think the Army Corps of Engineers would have had them going right away? Just stiffen up the levees? They didn't.
Kathy went to school at Tulane. 4 times they brought up, they tried to fix the levees. And they went on to defeat every time. They don't want to spend money on it. They don't want to waste money on it.
Those
So everybody pays.
And they did a very, very poor job each time they fixed them.
Right, well, what I'm saying is, they didn't do anything. She was there from 80 to 84, and 4 times. People are like, we have to do this. And they're below sea level.
Yeah, and I'm involved with the NFIP, this is suit going on right now, and Jeffrey Jackson,
you get on?
directors.
I'll be able to make you a panel.
I said, you know, it's amazing that a storm comes in, FEMA ready to check for billions. I mean, I'm talking billions, all right? But how about giving these cities, you know what I'm saying, the money beforehand?
Whatever the last.
It's millions, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, but well, the thing is, it's hard to get people to buy into it.
He said, we'll get Congress to do that.
They could have spent a little bit of money, fixed them up, and they would have, they didn't have
The
wind
problem
damage.
is they haven't spent the money,
And
but they didn't spend the money.
Right, but those bills they tried to pass all failed.
Yeah.
In Mississippi, there were 200 people killed from tornadoes.
Go right through
Right,
this.
that's what the damage from the hurricane and sun was way worse there. Yeah, it failed well after.
You get it?
I can't, it's not letting me into any Wi-Fi in here. Do you have any?
Oh, yeah.
We're getting close.
Yeah, Kathy has a really good friend, two of them that went to school with it, and they grew up there, and they never left it. They lost their home, rebuilt. And they have a new system of pump houses now.
Yeah, good for that guy.
It's all Andrew Jackson's fault. He won that battle.
Maybe if they didn't build below sea level, they'd be in better shape too. If they built where the things,
Yeah.
trying to create new land is not the best option sometimes.
Part of it would be okay to wash away, my goodness. I've been there, Bourbon Street, my goodness.
Someone just came in. It's kind of unnerving when you're sitting here, you leave the door open, and you don't know who's there.
Yeah. Our policeman was here and then left for me.
People just walking through.
I'm looking for the.
Yeah, it's getting different. We had that happen last year too. For the biggest storm was running down.
Pumps out. In November. We got till June 1st to get them back in, and everybody was panicked.
So have you moved in now? So where are you?
Oh, I bluffs.
It's nice you don't have to have flood insurance over there. You don't have to worry about pumps, things like that.
No.
You like it so far though?
Mhm.
I love not shoveling snow.
All right, you should be able to
Absolutely.
share.
Since we're waiting, Can I get kind of an update on where we stand with anyone qualifying for the election, the upcoming election? Have we had any new?
You're looking at him,
Frank?
Frank.
And Kim as well.
Can you share?
I didn't know he was up for re-election.
Right, no, I did not see the letter. I was out of town for a week, and I have my iPad. Or a letter, no, what's?
That was
Girls.
Yeah, it was just Leslie announcing her, designation.
She came in today around 11, or 10.
Hey, we have a presentation on the screen.
We made it.
Right.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. So as Bill introduced himself, just a counterpart of Bill's, I actually cover the western part of the United States, so Colorado and the West, but I got nominated to do the presentations, so that's why I'm here. But yeah, we're, I don't know, wasn't listening super close to what he mentioned to everyone, but we are family owned. We're based right here in Florida out of Deerfield Beach.
Could you speak a little closer
Yep.
to the mic there?
Yep, we're based out of Deerfield Beach. Started in 1926 as MWI. We also own two other pump companies, which is FPI and Couch Pump Company. Couch actually started in 1917, so we've got a lot of history there. This is kind of just a quick picture of both of our facilities. So at the top left is our plant in Deerfield Beach. It's even much larger than this picture shows here. We actually take up about 3 city blocks. We've got over 60,000 square feet of manufacturing at that location. And then on the top right is our Vero Beach facility. Difference between the two, down in Deerfield is actually where we manufacture our submersible electric pump, which is what we'll talk to you all about a little bit later here. And then we also build our hydraulically driven pump called the HydroFlow, and a lot of other smaller pump items that you would use in the construction industry. Vero Beach is all repair, and then also a line shaft pump, which is what he had mentioned a little bit earlier too. It's where we really started out, was line shaft pumps in agriculture. We are ISO 9001-2015 certified. We've got pumps all over the world, so that's kind of the purpose of this. We're in over 50 countries worldwide. One of the largest ones being over in Thailand in the Asia Pacific. We've got over 250 pumps over there. So this is just kind of a list of the pumps we do manufacture. So as I mentioned, the HydroFlow is the one on top there. It's a hydraulically driven pump. We're one of only 2 in the world that really build a pump like that. We got a mobile version of it, and then what our specialty really is in the axial and mixed flow, which covers all 3 of our pump lines, our line shaft, our HydroFlow, and the submersible electric. What axial flow is, it's basically good up to about 25 feet of head. Mixed flow is then going to take over after that, and then we can get up to about 60 foot of head. So with that, though, you're able to move very large volumes of water, as Bill mentioned earlier, from about 1,000 gallons a minute up to over 400,000 gallons a minute. So this is just a quick snippet of a line shaft pump, again, where we started in our journey of building pumps. Very simple. You've got an electric motor, or electric or diesel drive unit. As you can see the 3 pictures here. So one has a gear head on top, there's a diesel engine, and then a belt and pulley electric motor. Just wanted to show everyone that, hey, we do more than just one pump. So won't spend any additional time there, but we do manufacture them out of ASTM A242 steel, 304 stainless, 316 stainless, and we can cast them, although we'd rather fabricate. Talking about fabrications, the reason we prefer to fabricate out of plate steel is it's repairable and it's stronger. Cast iron cannot be repaired, and it's about 1/3 as strong as actual plate steel. So, I left this in here. This is also a line shaft station, but the reason I left it is this is downtown Fort Lauderdale on the New River. You can see the high rises in the background. There's some pretty big boats, and right there behind it's very, very high income area. And they managed to put a pump station right downtown and disguise it very well with nice murals on it. And I mean, again, this is a line shaft, so these are very large pumps, but they made it fit into the area. So it can be done, just depends on, what type of footprint you have. But Bill, this building's probably only, 50 by 50 or so? It's not.
Probably 40 by 20.
Yeah, so you can disguise a pump station and still make it work in the neighborhood, so. Just a shot of one of our manufacturing facilities. This is in Deerfield Beach, assembling a line shaft pump. So again, we manufacture everything in-house. Everything's made in the USA, right here in Florida. And then the purpose of these two slides, so if you look at across the bottom where it says 20,000 gallons a minute, and you go up the left where it's 10 feet of total dynamic head, they intersect at the red dot, right? So we're pumping 20,000 gallons a minute at 10 feet of head at 504 RPMs. By simply manufacturing a different propeller, same pump speed, 504 RPMs, but now we can be up to 16 foot of head. All we're changing is the propeller. So on all of our pumps, the HydroFlow, the line shaft, or the submersible electric, that intake and bowl assembly is the same unit. It is just bolted depending on what the driving unit is after that.
Can I ask you to explain what head is?
Head is it's a total calculation of all of the losses in your system. So it's going to be from the pipe. You know, if you have a concrete pipe or a PVC pipe, there's losses there because the concrete is more porous. It's also accounting for bends in any pipe or anything that's flowing through, so it accounts for those losses because that water has to make a turn, it slows it down. It accounts for lift. So if your water level is here and we've got to lift it up 10 feet, you have a static lift of additional 10 feet. So you're adding all of those losses together to get a total dynamic head. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So this kind of gets us into why we're really here. This is one of our submersible electric pumps. As you can see, we build them from 8 inches to 60 inches in diameter. Probably for your neighborhood, you're looking at one of our, either the 8, 10, or 12 inch would probably be what you'd be looking at. And of course, as Bill also mentioned, usually you want to have at least 2. One as a backup or redundancy if you've got one out being maintained or repaired. Something gets stuck in one of them and it overloads, you're going to have the other one to still pump. So you usually want that redundancy of at least an extra one backing it up.
How often does that happen?
Depends on what you've got in the streets going into them. The breaking down scenario is very rare. It's usually something can get stuck in them depending on what type of trash rack system you have getting that water before it gets there.
What diameter of discharge can those pumps take without a block?
It'll depend on the size of the pump. So something smaller like the 8 to 12 inch.
Like a 10 inch?
It'll go up to a 3 to 4 inch compressible solid. It'll snap like a broom handle or something, bust that right off. But if you get, somebody's chunk of firewood that ends up floating down and getting pulled up in that, but what it generally will do in a submersible electric, it'll over amp and just shut it off. It's not as common for them to detonate inside because there's not this big long shaft going up to a motor that's 20 feet away. It'll usually over amp the motor, trip a breaker, and shut it down first.
I'm just saying that because our new grates have about 1 3/4 opening, okay? Doesn't mean things don't get in there, and the old ones have maybe a 6 inch.
Yeah. Yeah, and we can put a bar screen on the bottom too and size that the same, and that will account for, flow coming in. So hey, if we need to ramp it up to get past, say 1/2 inch openings, we can do that.
I think the biggest problem you'll see here is palm fronds and pine bark.
It'll eat them up. Yeah, they'll get shot back out. So the reason, again, that you're interested in the submersible electrics and they're becoming very popular, especially in densely populated areas, is if you look at this bottom right picture, that's just a guy and it's a backhoe putting this pump in and out. You don't need a giant crane, you don't need heavy, massive equipment, and the pump station can be out of sight, out of mind. You can actually see the concrete walls around that. There would be a grate that goes over the top, and you would never even know that station's there. So that's the intriguing or the allure of it, especially as we're running out of land in our coastal regions. So cost for the structure is very minimal. There's no massive protective coatings and housings around them needed. Like I said, you can pull it out. Your pump's probably going to weigh less than 1,000 pounds. You can pull it out with very small equipment at that point. Less moving parts also, so everything is much more condensed down. And then of course, as Bill had mentioned too, we can make it out of multiple types of materials. Anywhere along the coast, we highly recommend 316 stainless steel. It's going to hold up a lot better. We won't get into the nitty gritty of this, but the reason for this too is to show the breakdown of the pump, but more so, those are the same pumps side by side The pump on the left has a planetary gear in it, so when you get to a large pump, you've got to slow that propeller down. You can't spin it 1200 RPMs. Well, when you have to slow an electric motor down, the windings get massive. So then it starts taking up all of the room you have to send your water through. So we'll use a planetary gear to slow that propeller down even more to 200 or 300 RPMs. So we can adapt and overcome. We manufacture them all, so we can build a pump for your station. You don't have to build a station around your pump, if that makes sense.
Calvin,
Yes.
Calvin, could you maybe start with a somewhat of an overview as far as what do these pumps do? They're pumping to accomplish what? Where are they in a general system? And what, if anything, you know about our particular needs?
You're actually going to see that in about 1 or 2 slides. We've got several examples of pump stations and even some blueprints and drawings to show you.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Yep. And the only thing I just want to touch on this slide before moving on, we can install our pumps in 3 different positions. We can install them horizontally, we can put them on an angle, or vertical. All of our competitors only go vertical. Of course, when you can put it angle or lay it on its side, you can make that station even smaller and get it hidden out of the way where it's not in someone's backyard and sticking up in the air. So, another advantage to our product, all of our parts are off-the-shelf parts. If you end up needing a seal or you need a bearing or you need something for that pump, you can go to a warehouse over here, get the parts, and have it repaired. Several competitors of ours, they make their own proprietary seal, their own proprietary bearing. That means they control the price, they control how fast you can get it, or even if you can get it. We're not a parts company, we're a pump company. We'd rather you get your pump fixed and get it back going again with common off-the-shelf parts. This is an example of the installations. So you can see the top center is angled, bottom left is a horizontal configuration, and then a couple vertical cans there with some additional intake items to it. This is an example down in Key West. So again, I don't know how many of you have been down to the Keys. There's not a lot of real estate there. So this entire pump, the can that it's slid down in and its discharge is all underground. And down there what they're using is they're using injection wells and injecting that back down into the earth, letting that filter it, and now you're not trying to put that water somewhere else when you don't have a place for it.
I have a question. Is the motor submersible also?
Everything is in the water.
Everything
Yes.
is in the water?
Yep. And with our submersible electrics, we manufacture our motor housing. So the actual motor core, we do purchase from the outside, but we manufacture the housing or the stator assembly around it, and every single one of them is 304 stainless or 316. We do nothing less. Doesn't matter what the rest of the pump is made of. This is just a large station up in New York City. Again, just showing the size that we can adapt to. I won't spend a lot of time there because it doesn't fit your application. This next 2 slides is what I really want to stay on. So this is in Lake Park, which is just north of West Palm Beach. You can see the condos, you can see the population around it, and they actually fit this into a park. So starting at the bottom right, where they see that fence line, that is where it's discharging out into the intercoastal. Moving to the center picture is the flap gates where it discharges from the pump. So it comes out of those flap gates, runs down that drainage ditch there, and off into the intercoastal. Very, very simple design, and the entire pump station is that white concrete box that you see in that middle picture. That's it.
What's the discharge diameter?
So one of them is a 12-inch, the other 2 are 18-inch.
How many gallons?
We just went over it. What were they?
Yeah, I think, like 12,000 gallons a minute.
4,500 is the small one, 9,000 is the 18.
Okay.
So, again, we wanted to really show this because of it fitting into.
No, the reason I asked that, because I sent you some measurements,
Mhm.
okay? And a typical street with 2.5 feet of water will hold
Yep.
about 50,000 gallons.
Yep.
So you just said 12,000 gallons a minute. It doesn't take a lot of,
Yeah.
right, and there's going to be questions about coming over the seawall, okay? That would discharge pretty quick.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, we were looking at the curves. A 10-inch would do about 2,000 to 2,500 gallons a minute. So 2 of those, one is a backup. You know, and the other thing you can do, not necessarily just a backup, you can alternate their run times. So when the one comes on, this one will run that, and then there's, this motor control center knows, hey, next time they've got to turn on, turn this one on. You know, then you're not running 10,000 hours on one pump, the other has 2. And it's also not sitting there, not getting exercised. So, these are the blueprints for that station. So this is a bird's eye view looking down, and you can probably see it better on your computer screen. That pump station is 19 feet, and I can't see behind the other one, by about 17 feet. That's that entire vault in the ground with 3 pumps in it. And it has a 72-inch feed pipe coming in, which of course is going to be way overkill for what's needed.
72-inch.
72-inch feed pipe coming in, yeah. That's taking a lot of area, and we're funneling it all onto this one station. That's why it's so large.
And the other thing I mentioned to you is connecting maybe 4 streets into one catch basin, which you're talking now 200,000 gallons.
Mhm.
But that 200,000 gallons wouldn't be there if they were pumping.
Correct. Correct. Yep, and if you have more than one pump in there, you can also have a lead and a lag. So you could have that second, if the water keeps coming up, that other one will then kick on, and they'll, you know, work in unison at the same time and pump out. And that's, again, looking at this station, if you can keep it as simple like this, then you're not pumping against each other out one pipe. They're their own separate TDH or own separate head. Sometimes they'll want to join them together into one pipe, well then you're raising your head, which adds horsepower, adds pump sizes. This is a really, what we were feeling is a very nice fit probably for your area. And you can see here too, where the 3 pumps sit, pump 1, 2, and 3, it's like 10 feet of pipe, and then there's discharges, so. This is also another one we wanted to share. So this is in, you can see a brand new construction neighborhood. This is in a horizontal design. So those pumps, the intakes are here, they come up into the pump and discharge out that way. When this pump station's complete, there's a cover that goes over the top of it. They cover it up, you don't even know it's there. You have no clue that there's a pump station in the backyard of that neighborhood pumping away. That's 4 24-inch pumps. So another option with the horizontals, if you can't go deep or you can't, hey, lay them on their side and then have it discharge out, and that'll keep your profile down a lot.
So when you say they're covered up, I'm gonna assume to the right of the pump is covered with ground cover. To
Correct.
the left of, is it an open grate, and what kind of noise do these?
They'll be about as loud as your dishwasher. So they're very, very quiet.
So you didn't answer my first question, is it an open grate?
You could do both. So this one actually has a concrete cover that goes over it because they're covering it with earth. A
Okay,
lot of times they do like to put a grate over them, let water pour down in and go into that well that way too.
so if we put a concrete cover over it and cover it with earth, how hard is that to uncover if there's a failure and
Backhoe. I mean, someone's gonna have to dig it back out.
yeah?
Yeah.
Back up to the lake, yeah. They have open grate on top of their station.
On the raised area, yeah.
Over where the pumps actually are, it's just flat, and they have hatch covers, that they lift the hatch cover up, and that exposes the pump, so they can get the pump in and out.
If you have if it's just such a small area, why would you be putting earth on top of
It's.
That's what we don't design the pump stations.
Okay, all right.
That's left up to the engineer. So, yeah,
That one looks large.
yeah.
That was a big.
So you talked about how much they weigh. For each of the ones we're talking about, for us, can you give me a
You said about
ballpark about how tall and wide these things are?
Are we getting to the Jones one?
It's hard to tell on
No,
these
so-
pictures unless there's some.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just did a pump test, the one for Key West, that was an 18-inch pump, and that stood about this tall. So that was the whole thing. It
Where in
drops down
Key
to the
West is that located?
That one's going to Roosevelt.
Roosevelt,
Yeah.
and just kind of trying to landscape.
I don't know the cross street. We can send you the list.
Yeah.
We've got 5 of them down there right now. That's number 6. We can send you a list of all of them.
Yeah, and what kind of time frame you put them in, yeah, that would be nice to know.
We just worked on a job that has 2 8-inch, I think they're 1,000-gallon-a-minute pumps, and we have a footprint of what that pump station looks like, and we can get
It's not
that
in
to
here,
you.
but we can send it to them.
Yeah. We can get that to you. And that
Do
might
do
be.
you know Do you know approximately the dimensions of that footprint? Is it like 8 by 8 or any
Yeah,
guess?
8 by 8 is more than what it is, I think. It's actually less than that, I think, 8 by 8. And then the depth is going to be guided by your low water level. And the way you feed it, some of them are fed open channels with a trash grate. This one is fed with a big pipe. You know, so all your street drains are draining into this one big pipe that's coming into the pump station.
Just so people, if they're listening on the internet or whatever, what your station would be smaller than our sandbagging station that we have, keeping our sand in right now. I think that's like 10
Probably,
by 10.
yes.
Yeah, because like I said, this one with 3 larger pumps in it is only 16 by 19. So take 2 10-inch pumps, suck it down, and yeah, significantly smaller. Now, an advantage to that larger well, though, is you can use that as storage. So as stuff comes in, it can also count for storage for you too.
You're putting them pumps underground, do they need air, the cooling or anything like
The
that?
water's what's cooling them.
Okay.
Yeah. So that pump slides down in a can, and that is where all that water is being discharged through. So it's rushing over the motor and the entire pump assembly. That's what keeps it cool. No airflow needed. That's the one we got there. That's it. Yep. This is just another example of a horizontal design. So what they did in this wet well, of course, you can see it's much larger, but that flange slides down in a C channel. So they can take that entire pump and intake assembly, slide it down in, and it pumps. When they don't need it, they pull it back out, go put it in storage. It's not laying down there in the water. These are actually used around Lake Okeechobee, so it's only used in drought times. But again, just another customized design that we do. This was one of the ones that Bill was talking about in Hilton Head. So what you can see on the concrete walls is barnacles. Barnacles only grow in saltwater. So just an example, again, of a horizontal, very low profile design to get the water pumped out to where it needs to go. And this is again, our design of how to hang this pump. So what you'll see is that pump comes down and the armature goes over the back of that picture to the right, and the actual weight of the pump is all that seals it in there. It doesn't have to be bolted in. You don't need a diver to go down to bolt it or unbolt it. It's dropped down in with a crane or a lift truck and pulled back out the same way. And that's just a picture of it being complete. It's completely stainless steel. That's a 30-inch pump. But, you know, it just depends on how much room you have and what works for you guys. But again, we build our stuff to the engineer that's designed the station. They don't have to do it around our pump. So. Another angle design. So this is Colorado. I won't spend much time on it, but again, proprietary to us. So they use big old gravel beds, use it for storing water because there's shortages out there. So they slide this down in, pumps it up the pipe, and shoots to the next pump retention pond. And there's just an example of another stainless steel pump. So this is a 18-inch pump. So this, where I was showing you, stands about a little taller than I do. Quick thing behind the stainless steel, this is in a waste treatment plant, which we normally don't get into. However, our competitors' pumps were cast iron, and they were being destroyed in about 3 to 4 years. This pump, I personally took this picture in May. In September, this pump was 5 years, and that's what it looks like. It was brand new, like it came off of our manufacturing facility floor. So this 316 stainless is really the way to go for longevity.
Not 304. I always take 316 as a finished product, you know, but 304, 308, you don't ever. So
You can do the 304. The 316 is harder. So, if you've got a lot of sand in your water stuff, it's going to hold up to that abrasiveness rushing through it at all times. That's really it on the submersible electrics. The last couple slides is just other pumps that we do rent. And the only reason I left it in there is if you guys ever run into a situation where, hey, you need pumps over here, an emergency, we have them in Tampa. We have a branch right there that rents. So those we have 4 up to 12-inch. Those are going to be the diesel pumps sitting on a trailer, but they could be used if you have a lift station that goes out for sewage, you got a drain that's just totally not draining and you got to pump it somewhere. We do have them close by. So just if that would ever come up.
Your discharge pipes, are they, what type of steel? A36, Core 10?
We can make them out of Core 10, we can make them out of stainless, we roll our own.
Okay, oh, you are.
Yeah, we can also buy stainless pipe too. You know, if you're not needing, usually we'll roll them up to about 20 feet long. So over 40 to 60 feet, hey, go buy the pipe instead of us making it. But everything again is done in-house. We roll our own, weld it, put our flanges on it. Yep. So the suggestion for your station would be to complete stainless steel, everything. So stainless steel flap gates, stainless steel pipe, stainless steel pump, everything. It'll last very, very long. As he said, 24 years in Hilton Head, they're just now starting to replace them.
We're doing some jobs down in South Florida on some golf courses, and they're using this HDPE pipe, which is a plastic.
Yeah.
And it's expensive, I think, but they're never gonna replace it, ever. It's always
Is
gonna
it
be.
more expensive than stainless?
No, it's not more expensive than stainless, but it's an expensive pipe. It's not like PVC. PVC used to be so inexpensive, but the HDPE, and if you don't have far runs, the PVC is still used a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Core 10 will last, but it looks like crap. I mean,
Right.
you know, but it lasts for.
Right.
And we can also, you know, if this, say it's a station similar to this, we can coat the stuff in like a Velzona coating, so that, hey, if you don't want to see that stainless look, we can make it black, white, green, gray, pink, purple, doesn't matter, we can coat it in that. In our longer presentation, we actually do have a submersible electric, the pump assembly that was coated in a white Belzona. It was in a reservoir. It was there for 10 years. They pulled it out. It was as white as the sheet of paper. So that can be done too if it's, you know, for aesthetic reasons. But you really don't need to coat the stainless.
So my assumption is that you've had conversation with our engineer.
Yeah, brief conversation. Like I said, we haven't been in your site. We don't know how your site is set up. There was a question earlier, what do we do? What are we pumping? In this case, we're pumping stormwater. And stormwater, it's great when it's gravity until the body of water that you're dumping into is higher, and then it won't flow. That's where our pumps come in. So most of our work is done with engineers. They've come up with conceptual designs and ask us to look, do we have a product that will work where they need it? And we go back and forth with them. We supply them information on footprints. They work with the customer and find out where that footprint is. Is it too big? Is it manageable? And we just work back and forth, and we're into the pump side. But and that's what we do. We understand how much horsepower we need with how much flow, but usually the engineers are the ones that are coming up with the flow rate. It's not us.
Now, do you, whenever you are speccing out a pump, does that specification, does that come from the engineer, or does the engineer come to you and say, this is my problem, what size pump do I need?
Both. We have lots of different specifications depending on the materials, the type of pump it is, the type of motor it's going to be, the RPM, and we supply that to the engineer. Sometimes they open it up and add different materials that they think are more suited. But yeah, we generate a specification on the pump that we think is matching what he's trying to design and what the customer needs.
Something to keep in mind too, and your engineer will help with it, but you'll want to know what type of service you have at your location from FPL. Sometimes they don't have enough amperage to run 460 volt electric motors. So it's another thing you'll want to look into and understand what is there and can it run these motors. Some of them are very low amperage, but it just depends on what the load is in that area. So that's an FPL question, but you'll definitely want to look into that.
And I think no matter where this is decided this goes, and that'll be a decision, I guess, with that the engineer will make, we're gonna have to bring in power, wherever it goes.
Okay.
That we have nothing,
Okay.
nothing ready for this, and I don't even know where you would propose to put it.
Well, you have a pump station at 7th Street. I'm not sure what the voltage on that
That's
is.
not ours, though, that belongs to the county.
Yeah, but
The
he's talking
waste
about bringing in the power.
Just power.
Yeah.
Just the power.
Yeah, Yeah, the power, I mean, we'll have to sort, it'll come in.
Yeah, just like I said,
We
food
can
for,
get it,
food
yeah.
for thought when you're thinking about placement and, hey, make sure you can
We're gonna have
get
to set
large
it
enough
up.
service there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And a lot of this stuff is done in phases like your other projects.
yeah.
Your sidewalks or everything else, you don't come in and put them everywhere. You start off with a plan and, you work your way through. You start off with a storm plan, maybe you're working on drainage, maybe you put in a sump, and maybe you put in one pump, and a few years later, you come back and put the second pump in. There's a shoe size for everybody.
Right.
And I think one of the advantages that we have is we're a small company, and we can work through 15 different phases, or we can come in and do all 15 phases at once.
No, it's great, you guys are local, as far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
We're not looking at a pump made in China, I'm very pleased with that.
Not at all. Yeah.
No.
And also, this is not something that I get into, but I know with some types of federal funding, they want to use what's called BABA, Build America, Buy America. We fall very nicely into that, which we've been told by municipalities can get them more money because of being able to use products for that. They're Build America, Buy America. So just another thing to keep in mind, that's all.
Have you found a lot of grants, I know you guys don't get into the grants or whatever, but have you seen?
We haven't, but we've gotten involved in a lot of projects in the last few years that are grant funded.
Yeah, that's what I'm,
Yeah. So where they get the grant, how they do it, I don't know.
right. But I'm just saying that, there's grants available that.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll screw up the abbreviation, but I think it's ARRA, the American Recovery. We see a lot of that stuff coming through, in the spec, that's part of the funding, so that therefore, you've got to do this, this, and this to make sure that everything you're using meets it. But there's some money out there from that, I know.
I know after flooding, FEMA comes in, some people go after FEMA money. And it might take longer to get, but that's available. Being in Florida, what we're familiar with the hurricanes and the flooding, that money becomes available. Again, I don't know how. Search it and find it.
If you can help me understand the power source in that if there is flooding, it seems to me the power can go out, which it often does during a hurricane. So what good are the pumps then if it's an electric source pump?
So a lot of times the engineer will also put a genset or a generator in a enclosure off to the side that would indeed kick on then and be able to run the pumps for X amount of time as long as you have a fuel source. And those can be diesel or natural gas also, but that's your backup power option.
The station that's on the screen now, they have their motor control center, which is on the left side in that picture, right there. There's actually a generator plug. So the town has a generator that they keep stored somewhere, and if they lose power or if they're having a storm, they can pull it out there. There's enough concrete, they park it there and plug it in. That's their backup power. But that's a good point. Sometimes you can go to a lot of lengths to get a good pump station, and if you lose your power source, you lose it. Some areas, FPL will tell you what grid you're on, and depending on what kind of storm you have, that this area is going to be the first area backup and running. That's the areas that they look at first. Some of them are water treatment plants, sewage treatment plants, whatever grid those on. Sometimes you're close enough to one of those to tie into that, and after a catastrophe, that's the first one that's going to come back up and run.
Do you have an idea how many pumps we need?
No.
Have you ever done a project where a well was built in line with an existing drainage system? We have pipe, we have check valves, and we have drains. And rather than reconstructing the entire city, have you done projects where there was a small well built and then you had another pipe that ran out to the seawall?
Like a catch basin first and out.
Yes. Yeah, we've been involved in those.
It seems like that would be the least invasive to do smaller wells and smaller motors.
Mhm. Yes. And sometimes that's easier on your power grid as well. Instead of trying to get 200 amps to run a, 300 horsepower engine, you're just trying to get no more than what a house would use to
Right.
that spot.
Okay.
So you said that the pump that you thought we would use would weigh about 1,000 pounds. So you must have something in mind of what you think we need.
Well, based on the rough calculations that Frank did, he was getting close to about a 2,000 gallons a minute flow to be able to bring the streets back down in, say, 30 minutes. And by using that number, we use our pump curves and we can determine what size pump it would be and what horsepower from our curves.
Point of information, I gave you the worst scenario.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
where if the pump was active from
Yeah.
day, like, the water just doesn't come in 2.5 feet. Like, it started coming, I'll just use the last storm, it started coming in the street around 12 o'clock. By 1 o'clock, it was breaking the street. By 3 o'clock, it was in people's yards, okay? But my thing is, 3 o'clock, it breached the seawall. That would have, at 2 feet, 2.5 feet of water, and I'm probably being very conservative, wouldn't have been there when it breached the seawall.
Right.
So water coming over the seawall would have been able to be pumped out again, because I'm not saying water would not get in the street, but it would be minimal.
And it won't be in the homes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also, so you can put transducers in that wet well that will bring that pump up slowly. So it might only turn it on at 500 RPMs, and then as that level starts rising, it spins it up faster, 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 and then maybe brings on number 2. But it could run at a very slow speed to maintain that flow, and maybe it doesn't have to go to full speed at that point because it's ahead of the game.
Right, and at 2 o'clock, or not, 4 o'clock, we reached a 2.0 high tide. Okay, it's coming down. Like I said, that water still stayed in the street for 4 more hours. And I'm talking about, see, here's the other problem. We have a population here that's in its upper 50s, the average. So I have 2.5 feet of water in the street. How do I get an ambulance down that street? Someone's having a heart attack. How do I get a fire truck?
Mr. Banker, that's not his problem.
No, I'm just putting it
I
out
was
there.
thinking
But
the
I'm
same
like,
thing.
oh my gosh, I'm gonna have a heart attack.
But
I don't know if
I
I do,
think
but.
what we looked at was.
I sometimes have them when I leave here.
8 or 10 inch pump, 7 to 10 to 15 horsepower motor. But that changes with the amount of flow you need. And using a VFD, like Kelby mentioned, you can regulate your speed. So you turn a light switch on, it's on or off. If you have a dimmer, you can,
Right.
that's what a VFD does. So it slows it down and it can keep up with your flow.
That's good, because, I mean, I don't see, although we do get some flooding in some areas, it doesn't remain in the street very long. It moves with the tide, so whatever that tide flow is about what our water flows off the streets.
Yeah.
So we don't, there's a few times a year, a few tides that we have an issue. It's not every day, it's not a Key West issue, it's a lot different than that. So I think we just need to be mindful of that. My point in saying all that is this pump that you're envisioning that will remove 2,000 gallons per minute, what's the price tag for something like that? Just for the pump. I know we're not even talking about building the vault and the construction and dropping it in and connecting all the pipes and what have you.
It's Christmas time too, I want to remind you.
And that was 2 of them.
But not stainless, right?
Like a recent project maybe would be
Yeah.
one of these
I'm
smaller
gonna
projects.
throw a number out, a couple $100,000.
Mhm, okay.
And,
And then we still have to construct the vault,
yeah.
construct all the pipe connectors.
We, on the way over, you can't imagine how busy we are and how many jobs we were talking. We were talking to Illinois DNR, 2 different jobs. One's a 48-inch pump and 2 of them are 12s.
Yeah, and I don't think the
And
pump is
so
the
we're
price.
we're all over the place on our size of pumps
Right.
that we manufacture, so it's hard to come up with pricing. We just saw 2 8-inch pumps this week, similar to what we kind of envisioned might work for you all, and I don't remember what they were saying.
Yeah, because every job is different.
But they
There's
weren't
just
stainless
No
either.
two are the same.
But they're very simple.
So would you say roughly the price of the pump is about a third of the cost of the entire project
I don't know.
on an
We don't-
existing?
That's all gonna be based on how much infrastructure you have to alter.
Yeah, and we
to make
don't
it
get
happen.
involved in that. A lot of customers will buy the equipment direct from us, and then they go out for bid with the construction.
Right.
And
And the civil is where it
He'll-
gets expensive, yeah, so if you can keep that simple, like a precast station that drops right in,
yeah,
and then put the, of course, you're saving a
I
bunch of
think
money, but.
and that's probably what you'll have here. You'll have something small enough that precast people can bid on. So you don't have crews out there trying to form it. They're gonna bring something that's gonna be installed.
Yeah, I've done enough of those on site.
Yeah.
And we have a station right now, but it's, doesn't have a pump. Is
No.
that, what is it that we have? I thought I heard some.
Nothing.
That's for county sewage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we got power running to it. We got like a 24-inch pipe on 7th Street that runs directly through the park. And if you could drop in something in line with that pipe, it would probably be the best option.
So something that you were all talking about, and Bill mentioned too, if there is a well of some sort, a box, a culvert box, or something cast there, there are other pumps that we manufacture. So there's one it's a hydraulically driven pump, and it can still be run by an electric motor. So that pump could be dropped down in there. The drive unit is, like he said, on a trailer off to the side, and it could be dropped in for a storm event, pulled out, put on the trailer, and hauled away. If something like that worked, they've done that a lot down in some of the small South Florida towns that don't have the money for a big pump
That would
station.
be practical for us. It really wouldn't.
Okay.
We don't have enough staff.
We don't have that type of manpower to.
Well, that's another thing that a lot of people run into, they don't have. Louisiana has a lot of people working on their pump stations, and they'll have, one municipality might have 20 drive units that they're pulling out, getting hooked up for storms, but that's a manpower.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've got some interesting information to consider, and I think probably the next step is just to go back to the engineers and see if this is something that's doable. And
Yes.
what are we talking about price-wise?
Yeah, it's very interesting to see, if we can make it work. Definitely.
Well, we appreciate your time and letting us come and present our product to you. And again, we live just across the state, and we're local. We consider this locals. If you have any questions, want to go make a site visit and look at what you have, with the engineer, we're more than open for any of that.
Is this your second visit here?
It is.
That's what I thought.
It
I
is.
appreciate you coming back.
Yeah. Well, our first visit, we weren't on the agenda or anything.
That's right.
And working with the municipalities, we didn't want to spoil anything. We only want to come if we got something to talk about.
I can
And if
tell
other
you
people
that
think we have something to talk about.
we're not a unique situation on Sand Key Island. You can go right next door to Indian Rocks Beach. They're having the same problem.
Yeah.
Keep just going right on down the line. Everyone's having flooding issues.
Yeah.
So there's potential for other business.
Yeah, we had King Tide this year that lasted longer than anybody remembers, higher than anybody remembers. And we had a lot of neighborhoods on the East Coast that stayed, their swales were full of water for a long time. And we had fish in our swales. We hadn't seen that unless we had a storm. We hadn't seen that with a King Tide ever in my life that I remember.
Definitely been an interesting year.
Yeah. Well, thank you all.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I
Thank you.
appreciate you coming.
Yep.
He would, and he's a pretty easy going guy. He would have left you going, or Jen, remember when you were here and he left already, you were gonna bring him up?
Oh, yeah.
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 Do you have any material leave behind for those of us that don't have anything that maybe Kyle can put in our mailboxes or something, even
Yes.
in business contact?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some stuff to,
Vice Mayor Shirley. Well, I guess this is the last time I'll call you this, but just take a look at it and then give it back to Kyle.
And if you need more, we can mail them over too.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a
Or at least
problem.
your card, you got a card with you? Okay. Great, thank you.
Councilmember Elliott, did you have any more questions?
I've got some more brochures in my car. Get them ready.
The question I had was that, are they still there? I'm
Yes.
They are.
You're likely aware that we are already in the midst of a major stormwater improvement project right now. And so what is the differential in cost
I think.
in terms of in progress with the new effort going on versus having to do it later or coming back? How does that influence the cost?
We can't speak to it. We don't know what you're involved in now or what you have to do to put in a pump like we manufactured, so I don't think we can speak to that, unfortunately.
Because we have streets that haven't been touched yet at all, and we'll be going through, regrading the streets, putting in all new storm sewers, of the whole project. So is it easier to do your work when that's going on and the streets are open? I mean, the construction is going on and pipes are exposed, or is it just a clamp-on thing that it doesn't make any difference? It can come later.
Yeah, well, ideally, you'd like to do it all at the same time if you have the budget and you have the people that can do the work. Ideally, you would just want to make sure that if you decide to put in a pump station, wherever you put it, that you're allowing for that in your infrastructure that you're installing. Your piping is the right size, you have some gravity drain, drains that are the right size. You may end up having to put some check valves in some systems so you don't get backflow. It's easy. We're working on some projects, we're very busy, but some of our projects are 15 phases. And they're just working on the swales right now. They haven't even gone back in and started making changes in all the culverts that are under people's driveways. So it depends on, where you are and what you're trying to accomplish, but, I can suggest, and you probably are already doing it, your master plan for your flood is worked through before anything else is done. You know what your end result's going to be. So everything you do, preliminary, secondary, all ties in with getting it to a pump station or adding whatever you're going to do.
Right. And final question is, approximately how long is your bidding process? So that if we asked you to participate in this, how long does it take you to get a proposal together?
We bid jobs in 48 hours. Right now, what our problem is our deliveries are long, and we're running, maybe a 36 to 40 week delivery on some pumps right now. And
Wow.
that hasn't been, we're not accustomed to that, neither are townspeople or engineers. We've gotten accustomed to it, but it's still, that's a long lead time. But as far as putting a proposal together and bid, that doesn't take much time.
If you're 36 weeks out,
Mhm.
wouldn't that say a lot of communities are trying to resolve their flooding issues?
That's why when he mentioned earlier, a lot of municipalities are purchasing from us, so they don't have to wait for a bid to come out.
Right.
So they give a PO,
Proactive.
yeah,
Right.
they give
They
a
don't-
PO, we start building, and then you put the job to bid 6
Yeah.
months down the road.
They're still working on the pump station design that's going to go around our pumps. While we're getting started on the pumps, they'll have time to construct that or design that and then go out for bid. And when the contractor finally gets there, he'll have pumps to put in. So, but some folks can't do that. Some folks can't buy direct. They have to buy it through a contractor and,
All right, if there are no other questions, I'd like to thank Mr. Morgan and Mr. Miller for coming
Thank you.
out.
Thank
you.
And I'm going to grab
Thank you very
some
much.
brochures out of the car and bring them with me.
Okay.
And the next time you come back, we'll have something better for you to connect to, all right?
That's all right.
All right,
That worked
thank you
out
very
well,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, seeing as that is the only item on the agenda, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? Motion made by Frank Bankert. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All
Merry
right.
Christmas, everybody.
I'll split it with you two. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?